Hello, good evening. Can you all hear me well? Amazing, thank you. Good evening and a warm welcome to all of you to this 5th edition of the Dancing Dialogue. Tonight, the Dancing Dialogue is a series of conversation initiated by P.A.R.T.S, and the aim of this format is to highlight the beautiful work done by our amazing teachers here at P.A.R.T.S, and to give you a little bit more of an insight about who they are, what is it that they're teaching, and how they're teaching it, especially when they come here. There have been a wide range of topics that have been touched upon. There was theory, inclusive dance practices, repertory, contemporary dance technique, and tonight we're here for body studies with a very exciting panel of teachers. Thank you for being here tonight. Yes, we will start by, having a discussion and then opening it up to a Q&A with the audience. Yes, let me introduce you to the teachers tonight. We have next to me Palle Dyrvall, teaching shiatsu. Next to Palle we have Tarek Halaby, teaching Pilates. And furthest away from me, Cétaire, who is teaching body conditioning and physical preparation. If you're curious about more of these dancing dialogues and would like to come back, there will be more coming up in the future, notably on composition, coaching. If you're interested, please subscribe to the P.A.R.T.S newsletter or check the website or follow P.A.R.T.S on social media. So let me introduce myself. I am Laura Maria. I've been a student at P.A.R.T.S 10 years ago. And after that, I've been a dancer full-time for Rosas for 10 years. And I've been recently switching to freelance, doing my own work, teaching a lot more, and also became a mom. And that has been a little bit of a new perspective on how I, how I think about my body. And from that, it sparked the desire to be more knowledgeable about my body. And I've started to study nutrition, holistic nutrition, with a special focus on women's reproductive health. So I'm very stoked to be talking about body practices and body studies tonight. What we understand by this a bit umbrella term is all the practices in P.A.R.T.S that is not dance, but is meant to give a deeper knowledge of their body to the students. That is a very generic definition, and I'm really excited to go a little bit deeper with the teachers and to really understand what is it that we call body practices. Yes, so let's start, right? My first question is very basic. I would like you to introduce yourselves and introduce your practices. So what is it that you're teaching? How did you come across that practice? How did you get in touch with it, like literally, physically? And how does it relate to your dance practice, if it's related? Maybe it's not. Yes? I propose we go like this.
Well, I was injured already in dance school, so I had really a long time injury, over 3 years. I had constant inflammation in my knees. I think on a quick inventory they said, oh, this guy could be a prince or something, that with a haircut and a better turnout, that'll be good, so I was kind of pushed a little bit to do works that my body didn't want, I guess. It's not saying it was anybody's fault, but I definitely forced my body a lot during my dance training. And I learned some other practices that helped, like floor technique and floor bars and Pilates. It was called body control at the time. And I saw all the physical therapists available and kines and osteos, but it was all very focused on my knees and on what was happening, and I didn't I mean, it made me come through dance training and go through my days, but I'd actually suffered quite a lot physically and also psychologically, because I didn't have a backup plan of what I would do if I didn't do dance. I also moved out of my home when my parents separated, so I was about 17 and I was still didn't have a plan B, so it was kind of a lot of pressure too. So I guess I was lucky then to get a good job after dance school in postmodern dance, so I didn't put so much pressure on my body. And I had time to reconstruct, and I was doing Tai Chi at the time. And I had learned that from a teacher in school who was Russian, and I'd learned that from a Chinese master in Russia. So that was a basic training for me. That was part of my daily training at the time, together with somatic practices. And I could reconstruct myself pretty well in those years, with us about 3 years. And at that time I discovered, and that's how I came in contact with shiatsu, was we had a double bill with another group, Irene Holtman, some of you know. So she was doing practice in the morning, and we could join that practice. So about 3 weeks I was joining them for more warming up class, and they did something called imagery exercises, and these were actually meridian stretches. And she introduced me to what was the meridians, and she showed me a book of Shiatsu Matsunaga, who wrote that book about meridian stretches. And I got that book and I read it forwards and backwards and studied it every day. And I made a promise. I said, I'm going to do this every day. And I ended up doing that every day for 3 years, and dived into it completely and knew all those exercises. And part of those exercises was pair exercises. So you do them by two. And when we did them by two, actually it was shiatsu, but I just knew them as pair exercises. So I asked friends, of course, do you want to do imagery exercises? And then afterwards, we can do some pair exercises. And then we started doing very simple shiatsu, and together with knowledge of the different energy lines we call meridians, and which feel healthy and which feels tight, or so that was kind of an exploration. And then to make a long story short, I had enough of the Swedish dance scene, and I moved to Belgium, because that was what I had seen was most exciting at the time. But when I arrived here, my kind of very healthy lifestyle of meridian stretches and Tai Chi and body practices was not what created nice materials for that kind of dancing. It was more kind of like earthly problems and like more tortured things, and a little more natural body language. People would not warm up. And the company I was in, they would just walk in the studio and make some cool stuff. And I was like, how do they do that? I feel too square with my Tai Chi training. It didn't fit, So I just kind of abandoned that all, and had enough ability to stay healthy, but it's kind of going in and out of. I was reminded by shiatsu through touring. I was out touring and I went, oh, there's shiatsu, and I just go for shiatsu treatment. And I had a very memorable session in Vienna and another one in Milano, and I was kind of have this crazy flash of like I had with the meridian stretches, and this kind of epiphany of, oh, this is amazing, it helps me so much. So eventually I thought I'd work with that one day, and that's how it came around. I found and lost balance through too much physical strain or imbalance in life in general, and found it back through this. So it become really a guiding line for me to, and then I was, oh yeah, there's another part of it. Do I still have time?
Yes.
Okay. We were doing a creation together with my girlfriend. We had a scholarship to go to movement research in New York. We were there for 4 months. We kept on working here. And eventually, she had a really severe back injury. And she ended up not being able to walk, hardly, and have severe pain for a long, long time. So She abandoned dance altogether. I was shocked, and she did body psychotherapy, she did Alexander technique, we dived into body mind centering and so forth, and she did a yoga teacher training, and she focused on something else, and I did my shiatsu training to be able to help or to be able to do something in that. You know, I had my experience of injury, and now I saw another one backside of our practice, let's say, and that was really the big shifter for me. Yeah. And there's a lot more to say, but I think I'll stop there. Yeah.
Thank you. Tarek, do you want to continue?
Yes, I'll continue. So I'm Tarek. I'm teaching Pilates and supposed to be teaching anatomy also, but we haven't really gotten there yet. How did I start with Pilates? I think yes, I know exactly. When I was studying university in the States, one of my dance professors was also teaching Pilates and incorporating it, some of the exercises as part of our warm-up for class, for technique class, modern dance class, but release technique. And she would always mix in with yoga and Pilates and some exercises from Feldenkrais and Alexander technique. It was kind of a mixture of things. But she was also certified to teach Pilates, and we had 2 reformer machines in one of the rooms of the dance department. So we would do one-on-one sessions with her. So that was kind of my introduction. It was immediately incorporated into a warm-up routine for dance class. And sometimes we would have guest teachers who would also kind of develop on different kinds of exercises with different, let's say, equipment or tools that we could use. Often it was just a yoga belt because we didn't have Pilates balls and rings and bands and things back then. So, or sometimes just a broomstick. So, little by little I got exposed to different exercises and kind of, let's say, variations of them. And by the time I had finished university, I decided to get my Pilates certification because I got a job working in New York with a company, with a choreographer, and thought that it would be a really great side job that I could have was to teach Pilates, to have a kind of, income to support the dancing that I was doing. So, that was back in 2001. I was 20 years old. I got my certification. I moved to New York. I started dancing, and I immediately started teaching Pilates. And I've kind of always been teaching since then, sometimes more intensively than others. I've always had it on the side, not only as an income, but as a way for me to stay in shape and be training my own body for the dancing that I was doing. I would teach in Pilates studios, and when I moved to Brussels and I was studying at P.A.R.T.S, I was also teaching at a Pilates studio in Uccle, while I was studying. And after that, I also, when I finished my studies here, I was teaching there a lot. There was a period where I had to kind of wait for my work visa papers to come in after my student visa papers had expired. And I couldn't really tour and perform legally, let's say, but I was teaching Pilates like 7 days a week. I was teaching all day long, every day, kind of running the studio with the owner of the studio. And at one point, things picked up. I got my paperwork. I started touring a lot, and I couldn't teach there regularly. So instead, I started to teach from time to time, focusing more on class for dancers. Teaching at P.A.R.T.S, teaching at Rosa's, teaching other dance companies, teaching at other dance schools as well. And it kind of became, a thing that I was doing, was trying to develop a class, based on Pilates technique, but preparing dancers for the dancing that they had to do for the day. Whether it was classes in school or rehearsal with the dance company that they were working with, that was kind of the main objective. And I think for myself, the kind of Pilates that I studied and that I'm trained in, it's Stott Pilates, which in general, what can I say about it? It's a more contemporary approach to the original Pilates method. Moira Marathu, I think, who developed the technique, she worked a lot with physical therapists and people that were in sports medicine to develop a kind of a different approach to the original Pilates method. But in general, I always found Pilates a little bit too rigid and square for dancing. Because as a method, it's originally developed for rehabilitation. It's exercises to kind of isolate muscles, to strengthen them, or to work a little bit on the alignment and structure of the body. So I had to, for myself also, and my own dancing body, I started to incorporate other information from other body techniques that I learned through my years of dance training and education and my dancing in general. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. Charlotte?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So how did I get in touch with strength and conditioning work? It's I've always danced since a really young age, but I've always also practiced sports and martial arts. So I've always loved physical approaches to movements, and but in the dance world, I really got an academic background since a young age, going to conservatoire, so really academic schools, dance schools in France, where even in contemporary dance, I started with ballet, but after I went to contemporary dance education, even though we had a lot of ballet, it was classes where there were a lot of differentiation between male and female, so therefore not the same training of movement. A lot of classes ended up, for example, for guys to stay and practice jumping, jumping higher, jumping longer, jumping better, while it was asked for us female to stay on the side, to stretch, to leave earlier the class. I've always found, of course now maybe it seems weird for us because it's so specific to, there is a discrimination on movement, who can practice or not certain movements. And I always try to train in the back, jumping, because I wanted just to jump. I always try to fight against that. And arriving at P.A.R.T.S, so after several dance schools, it was the first time that I had teacher that didn't make any differentiation between the students to who can approach some movements. And that's where I realized actually I got an inner discrimination of, because I never thought of myself that I could actually train to be stronger, because I had this inner thought of myself that because I was raised and born as a female, that I should not have this kind of movement available in my trainings or in my it was not accessible for me. And it was the first time I thought to myself, I really felt, oh, but I can train because I have a muscle and a body, so I am allowed to train like anyone else. And it started actually with Aaron Blom class, who was also a student before me at P.A.R.T.S. It was a class of MoveNat, so it's one of the branches of strength and conditioning work. Strength work has really a lot of families of labels or practices, and so it was one of them, MoveNat. He came, so we were mainly in the class doing crawling, jumping, climbing, practicing proprioception, practicing how to catch things. We had a lot of fun, and it was the first time I really thought of myself, but I can just get stronger because I like it. So I started to try to train during P.A.R.T.S. I was the generation of the COVID, so it was a bit. So it was a hard time. It was also a hard time I had difficulty to have access to information, to how to train well, how to train. And I was also dealing with eating disorders at the time, so I was a lot compensating. It was just not a good environment somehow to insert a daily practice. But I was still trying to train with things around me and with the information that I got. And going out of P.A.R.T.S, so 4 years ago, I started to go to the gym. And I was introduced to the gym by my boyfriend. It's important to say because I know the gym can be an environment that seems not welcoming. And so after time, I got into this place. I made it my own, and it became my daily life. It's my daily practice. It was really the space I felt I could prepare myself for other works. I could deal with my injuries. I could also, I could deal with not having a lot of work also after P.A.R.T.S. And something else that is maybe important to say is that I also trained because during P.A.R.T.S and after P.A.R.T.S, at the end of P.A.R.T.S, I started to work with Alexander Van Tonhout, who is the choreographer of the Not Standing company, which is a company that is really based on circus and dance. So it's a really intense, physical, demanding company. And for the first year and a half working in that company, I was always ending up with inflammations in my body, small injuries, small muscle contraction, having to deal with a lot of stress, having to deal with not enough recovery. I was really in the red all the time, finishing with this company. And I thought at some point, okay, how do you manage to not end up always in the red when you work with intense work? Because I was not trained during P.A.R.T.S to work such intense circus company as it was with Not Standing. So, for example, I decided that we had a tour coming up in the summer with a piece that was really physically asking a lot of squatting. On one leg, really long squatting. On partnering, you had a partner, and I was mainly dealing with knee injuries at this moment with this piece, because I was also with a partner that was doing approximately 80 kilos and sometimes only on one leg. But it was really specific work. So I thought of myself, okay, you have 2 months before starting again. How can you prepare yourself for that work better so you don't end up again in the red zone? So I observed the piece that I knew already, and I knew that I needed to know how to do few squats with 80 kilos on me to get my tissues more resilient and strong enough, and that it has been prepared for what was going up. So I had 2 months of preparation. I was not really good at crafting programs. I was just trying out. It was just really progressive. Few weeks before the first day of the touring, I got my few reps with squats, 80 kilos on me. I was feeling ready. I started to tour, and I was the only one from the group that during the tour didn't have any soreness, didn't have any small injury. I was feeling so good. I felt, but it's magical. Just preparing specifically for work is working. I know it's been years and decades. It's how it's done in the sports world. But to actually experience it from your body was really amazing for me. So now that's what I'm still doing. And of course, Not Standing company is really specific work. I don't say it's the general work. It doesn't correspond to all companies. But now I'm working also for other companies. And there is always specificities about the dance we're doing that we can observe and that we can analyze. I train for that so I don't get injured. So I prepare myself well, so I feel good about doing this piece also. So I focus only about doing the piece maybe, and I don't think about the fear of getting injured. So voilà, that's how I got into this practice.
Amazing, thank you. what I hear from all of your stories, and what I find very beautiful about is that there is a certain contingency into, you know, finding practices that are supporting your dancing in the first place. A lot of times from a trial and error, like having to try different things until you find what, you know, fits for yourself. But also that, you know, like you eventually can become really specific and it becomes a place of empowerment. Like practicing that practice becomes empowering for your dancing, but also maybe beyond, like for your life in general. Like also talking about injury prevention, because of course as dancers we use our bodies for dancing, but we also use it for our everyday life. So I find it very beautiful how, you know, that finding that search for something that supports your dancing becomes also something that becomes a bit broader. Also to mention that at P.A.R.T.S body studies, it's like there are other techniques and body practices that are taught, like yoga, Feldenkrais. So there's a really wide range of a really wide palette of, you know, things that student can also maybe have access to, so that, like you, they can find what fits them. And then that bridges to my next question, which would be how, from, you know, your own practice, how do you approach your teaching? What is, you know, what are your strategies and methodologies? How do you pass on knowledge? And what would be in that case specific to the P.A.R.T.S context? Like maybe you could have a little, like give us a little insight into what is it to teach that practice, and what is it to teach that practice to dancers specifically? Maybe Charlotte, we could go the other way around.
So maybe we'll speak about that later, but this practice is quite new in the dance field, I mean in the European dance culture. So maybe if I will speak now specifically about how do I teach at P.A.R.T.S. So because I got out of P.A.R.T.S not so long time ago, everything is really fresh for me. It's been 4 years, so I was in the generation 13. So from 2019 until 2022. So it means also everything is also fresh. All the other practices that we're doing at P.A.R.T.S is really fresh in my body and in my mind, and it's still things I use in my daily practice. In my gym practice, I still do meditation, do some massage healing, some yoga, some Pilates, some just actually movement practice. It's all here in my gym practice. And so when I teach at P.A.R.T.S, maybe it's important to say that I'm also the first teacher that is teaching that here, thanks to Owen O'Kelly, who is a coach that is living in New York, that has a gym in New York, and that taught me how to become a good teacher of strength and conditioning work. He comes every year since few years to keep on nourishing the students and myself. But it's important to say that there is a big part of experimentation in my way of teaching at P.A.R.T.S and in my way of conversing with the students and with the staff, because we're still learning how to make all of those body studies working well in the schedule. We know it makes sense in our dance life after, and we know how each dancers make all those practices their own, but how do we insert it in the program? How do we create regularity? How do we create enough input? About that, there is not enough regularity in the sense that we don't see the students every week. And I think with a practice such as strength work, in order to really see and feel better resiliency, better mobility, to have more resilient tissues, you need a really regular input. And because we don't have that, it's just about giving tools so that students can become autonomous as soon as possible. It's about for them to know that exists, and that, for example, about strength work, that this practice is for everyone, so they have all the tools for all the students. and I'm still processing how we can teach, how to teach for dancers. I mean, because Tarek, you were saying that you really got into how to teach Pilates specifically also for dancers, and I'm still discovering that. There is some tools on internet, other people that are also doing that, but it's just really fresh. So I must say it's quite impressive to have an institution, a dance school, that is allowing someone to experiment how to teach a new form. I mean, a new form. It's been decades, strength work is here, and even, I mean, it's really old, but how can it be inserted in the dance culture? It is still an experiment, and from that, the debate is still open. I'm still having discussion with the students, and I'm still mainly experimenting myself as a dancer. How do I deal with this practice as a dancer in my daily life? So that would be the word, I think. We experiment still. I don't have... we didn't find the great formula for now, but we're looking for it.
Yes, but maybe it's an ongoing. Yes, maybe it doesn't need to be, finding that right answer. And Tarek, would you like to share with us how you approach teaching?
I would agree that it's an ongoing process. I mean, I didn't come in with a clear strategy of how to organize myself throughout the year of giving classes. I think this first year, I really wanted to bring in a strong base so that everybody understands the principles of the Pilates technique and all of the different exercises. And that's through a lot of repetition, And so each time I teach, I bring back the same information, but I bring in also variations of it, and I try to make an overall class that's also incorporating other exercises or ways of stretching and warming up and heating the body or strengthening so that they're ready to dance for the day. And that, they can start to keep some of that information with them. Because a lot of this was also information that I received from teachers in my dance school training. And that stuck with me and that has worked for me. And that over the years I've been able to recall, what was that massage technique? What did she do with us with our feet that really worked with, different things that I could incorporate for my own body. And so I think mainly this year it's kind of a foundation of the Pilates technique and the exercises and the variations of it, to get a better understanding also of how to use the breath inside of that, which has been a really important aspect for me, because it's kind of trains you to understand how to breathe when you're moving and working with your body. There's something kind of intrinsically linked inside of Pilates for me that's really important. Also because I sing. And so there's a connection from all these different angles with movement and breath and voice that I try to bring into the class. I'm not so, I'm not so articulate about it or direct about it in terms of a methodology and the way that I teach it. I think I also have, my tendency is to do all of the exercises. Instead of walking around and talking and adjusting, I show, because one, I ran into a lot of situations, particularly with women who were not comfortable with being touched. And two, I'm a visual learner, so I always felt like if I show the alignment, if I explain it and as I'm doing it and they can see it, then that's a way that they can take in the information. But I think my goal over the course of the next 2 years, that hopefully I'll continue working with you, is that we really start to get into the details anatomically. That we start to look into the muscle groups, that we start to understand the skeleton, the structure, which exercises are specific for which muscle groups, and then how do we apply that to movement in a kind of kinesiology type of way? How do we start to understand which muscles are moving causing which actions in the body, and how, just to bring about an awareness. Because I think that Pilates, for me, it's a lot about breath and control. And inside of that comes a lot of awareness about your alignment, about maybe imbalances that you feel or that you have in your body, and how can we work to kind of rebalance things. That's it for now. Yeah.
Amazing.
To be developed.
Yes. So, Palle, it's been 10 years you've been teaching at P.A.R.T.S.
Yeah.
Would you like to share with us what is it, how is it to teach that practice?
My way into shiatsu,
I think you
my way into shiatsu, I just described a little bit. It came through meridian stretches, first of all, and then of a holistic practice that did not do something very specific for my knees, for example, which was my problem. It was my life that was out of balance, I realized, and meridians and this whole oriental practice that I also discovered through Tai Chi is something that is incorporating life into the practice. So I was very much inspired by Ki, blood, heaven and earth, and body and spirit together, and sometimes practicing Tai Chi, of course, outdoors was something that made me feel something called non-duality. It is something it's not two, it is one. So oneness and not making a difference between body and mind. So it's a vast project to bring that into to a teaching when you have very little time. But what I felt through my own experience was that it was a very easy access approach. So I could do it right away. I actually learned it first through a book myself. Well, with a little bit of introduction, I could develop something that I had felt or experienced. And so my point of entrance is my own experience, and then adding to that very basic structure of teaching an easy access manual therapy that I want them to be able to give to each other right away. So it's not like you have to learn a lot of things so soon later you'll be able to do some really amazing body work. No, it's right away we're learning something. So beyond the very technical aspects of where to put your hand and how to position your body and how to memorize the sequence we're doing, I focus on something very precious within shiatsu practice, which are the three basic principles. And those are perpendicularity, like now I speak into my microphone perpendicularly, because I've been told so by Jonas. Does that make a good sound? Yeah. So it actually is one of the principles of shiatsu, that the pressure has to be perpendicular. Something happens when it is. And then it has to be maintained and stable. And when it is, together with the perpendicularity, it has a concentration in the present, and that's something that all dancers know to how to be concentrated, but this is something that is introduced to the general teaching, how to be present in a heartful or and very concentrated way just on the two first principles, but also on being open and listening to the person you're treating, and so with those very basic principles, we're actually able to enter into something very precious about Oriental medicine right away. I don't have to explain so much, but of course, I would like them to be introduced to what is yin, what is yang, or what is the whole idea of Oriental medicine, so that we get a different hold point on what is body mind together. We don't speak so much about muscle groups or so the practice is oriented that way, and then I want them to be able to give each other shiatsu right away, but also at the end of the week, if it's a week, to be able to give each other a whole session of shiatsu, so that they could give it to each other and make it themselves feel the real benefits of equilibrium of body and mind, and giving a heartful practice to your friend, and even giving it to your family when you go home for Christmas or something, and then eventually, you can't make a performance for your mom, but you could give her a shiatsu or something. People, it becomes a part of their self-expression as well as dancers, to be able to do and share something of their somatic work that they do daily with people around them. So it's a focus to give them something that is doable right away, and that they can feel that benefit of relaxation and care.
That's beautiful. And what comes back, although your practices are so different from one another, what comes back is, the experience or the experimental aspect of it, but also the commitment that you have to give to it. You just spoke beautifully about, being present and being stable. And obviously, in a curriculum such as P.A.R.T.S, where there's so much information and so many different sources, how do you deal with the challenge of having so little time, and sometimes even you mentioned irregularity? Like, how do you deal with that challenge to bring practices that require some kind of consistency and commitment?
Shall I start this time?
Good idea.
I don't know. I'm not busy with that. I haven't been busy with that. I think my focus has just been each class, I try to make a kind of complete class to make sure that we've gone through all of the things that we can in that time and in the hour and a half that we're there. I think my challenge is still to come, where I'm going to have to start incorporating anatomy lessons into it and really not just give a Pilates class. So, but until now, I think your goal by the end of the week was for them to kind of have a complete session available that they can kind of do and understand and go through the parts of the body. I think each class for me is a bit that. How can I make a well-rounded class so that we've hit all of the different parts of the body, whether it's all the back muscles, the abdominals, the legs, the glutes, in Pilates it's a bit like that, so that they feel warm and ready to dance for the day. So I haven't felt so constricted by the time. And I think my way of dealing with, if it's not so consistent, then I bring back this thing of repetition to make sure that we're going over the principles again so that they remember them. And even in the class itself, I'm saying the key phrases over and over and over again to get it in their head that these are the things that they can check to make sure they're doing in order to execute the exercise in a way that's going to be beneficial and not harmful.
Yes. So you're trying to really build something that, in every class you would hit all of the key principles that...
Most of them, yeah. I can't get to everything each time, or some classes I focus a little bit more on this and less on that, but the general idea is their whole body is warm and they're ready to go by the time the class is done. And that they also can put in their pocket a sequence of exercises that they know can kind of go through the list of what can I do to prepare myself to dance. Yeah.
Do you want to add something, or you talked about it?
It's exactly the same. So same as Tarek.
Yes.
Well, I couldn't say it's really the same, because I'm not hammering out more than saying that it has to be perpendicular, stable, and concentrated. But I would say planting grains is more something that I can do in a short time. We're meeting through a practice that is a bit different. We're talking about or feeling things and like showing like showing a way, and then some people will be interested, you know, and they will talk to them or speak to them, or they feel something, and they might even come and ask me something, and what about this or what about that, and then we can go deeper. And as I said, some people remember the sequence and give it to their family and friends, and some people do that a lot, and they want to practice this thing. So for them, it's been the same class, and for somebody else, the same class didn't really hit with them that much. And I have too little time, for sure. That's definitely so. And I'm not even part of body practices, to be honest, because it's not really body practice, you know. So that's not a frustration either, you know. I just deal with that and deal with the time I have.
That's actually, it's a nice bridge, because I would like to focus specifically on each of your practices, because they are so different and specific. And I was wondering how, if it's okay, I'll start with you. How, because of course, shiatsu is not just, you know, any kind of physical practice. It's a holistic, it's almost like a part of how you live your life. And it's embedded, it's like really embedded in, you know, like Eastern philosophy and Eastern medicine. And how do you deal with, you know, how do you have that dialogue going on, you know, teaching in the context of a school that is, I mean, it's, of course, it's in the process of becoming hopefully less Eurocentric, but, you know, we are in Brussels at the heart of Europe, and the teachings are still mainly, you know, Western. So how do you, you know, is there a dialogue, is there friction? How do you deal with that aspect in your practice, but also when you pass it on to students?
I think we all have the possibility to separate at any given moment. We do that all the time. So since shiatsu comes from it comes from what we call non-dualistic practice. So it didn't have the same history to go through Descartes and saying we have a body and a mind and it's separate. And you know, the church didn't have that impact on the society in the Orient. So they don't come from the standpoint of we were once you know, separated. I mean, we all have a sense of separation, being born and say like, you are not your mother anymore. It's like, oh, that seems so weird. I thought I was everything. So in the meantime, we do go through moments of separation, and I think that's not a problem. So I'm not going to say I have to hammer in any concept about, oh, this is not separation, you know. People have to feel it. You know, so if we do a practice where people feel united, or that they have a feeling that my mind became very quiet when I did this practice, and it's not only a physical thing. I don't have to say that. You know, some people will say that themselves. You know, so what was the question actually?
No, I think you've answered beautifully.
Yeah?
Yes.
No, it's not a friction. East and West are not in friction in this way. And we all have the experience of feeling, you know, just united body and spirit. And it came to Europe in a certain time, I think, and maybe in the 60s or 70s or something like, it's the body mind. You know, it's like, it was like a discovery or something. You know, I still had the time of that. It's like, yeah, it's a body mind thing. And yeah, it's a lovely thought, but actually, yeah, I lived with it for a while, and I think I can transmit that from just being and transmitting the practice. Yeah. And then it will dawn with some people more than others.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then maybe we're moving to like another extreme, which is, you know, Charlotte's practice, who, you know, it's, as you said, it's fairly new in parts, but it's also maybe fairly new to, you know, the dance world in general. I think it's only recently, I mean, not everywhere. We consider dancers as complete high-level athletes, and that we treat ourselves as such. I think indeed it's very interesting that P.A.R.T.S is now, really, giving the students the tool to treating themselves as high-end athletes. And so I am wondering how exactly what you started to touch upon, how is it to teach something that we're still discovering and that you're still kind of crafting? Yes, and how is it to teach something that is also so fresh in your own body? Like, are you discovering things? Yes, I wonder how that is for you.
Maybe I would say that first, this practice indeed can be seen as really for, you were saying that now we start to consider also the dancer as a high athlete, but I'm also, I think it's also important to say that this practice is not only for high athletes, it's also done for people that are older, people that are seen as disabled, or people with neuroatypical issues or with psychiatric issues. It's a practice that is not. It's important that we don't let this practice only to the privileged ones somehow, and that's what I would say. That as a new practice. Maybe shortly, I want to say that I'm wondering if, actually after I would like to have your point of view on that, because this practice, strength and conditioning work doesn't have such a good reputation, I think, in the world, in Europe, or at least around me, it doesn't have a good reputation, and I think in the dance field it doesn't, it's the same. It still have a bit of... there is some assumptions around this practice in the dance world.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if it's also coming from use of this practice from, I think there is good reason why we should also be a bit scared or a bit pushing away this practice, because there is a use of strength work in capitalism, in neoliberalism, in masculinism, a lot of ism, but it is really in fascism society. It has been used in order to differentiate what is good or not physically, and there is a standardization of the body around this practice. Bref, there is a lot of things that indeed are important to point at. But I see also that but that's still in debate, and I'm really open to questions about that, but I'm also seeing maybe that we see badly this practice because a lot of people that when I started to go to the gym, they asked me, and people that maybe see me as who I am, I'm a white female dancer, educated, and going to the gym, they were actually wondering, oh, you're going to the gym, but as a dancer, you must go to the gym really and do something really clever there, or something more clever than the people around you. I really got a lot this comment of, because I was going to the gym, I was doing something different than the other people in the gym. And this is really something that I could not help myself hearing, you must do something better than people that contemporary dance European scene has changed. It's way more physical. That's what I said also. I'm working for Not Standing Company, which is really known and doing crazy physical stuff on stage. And this is not an exception. Nowadays there is a lot are asked to the dancers. So a lot of acrobatics, floor work, circus, also things from house, break dance, or a lot of physical, very demanding physical practices. And I would just take a bit of time again, sorry, I'm really long, but I think it's important because in my generation at P.A.R.T.S, if I have to categorize a bit, I will observe that from all female and people assigned female at birth arriving at P.A.R.T.S, only one person from all of us were not coming from a ballet background. So only one person was coming from only contemporary. We were all all female ballet trainers. We got a training in ballet. And the majority of the people assigned male at birth, they were coming, a lot of them, from breakdance. So then it's also shifting how we practiced movement before arriving in a professionalized school. So at school you can still train new movements, new type of things, but for example for our upper body, there is a whole new thing that we didn't train before actually arriving at P.A.R.T.S and suddenly training maybe floor work or partnering. As people coming from ballet, we didn't have maybe those cues. And I see also this practice because it is how I consider it for myself. And I know it's not universal at all, but I see this practice also as a way to think, okay, how can I fit better maybe in the dance field, but how can I share that also other people can have access to maybe more physical practices without getting injured, because that's the main thing here. You can always train how to do handstand and how to do acrobatics, and you should train by trying them out, but by building a strong body, resilient tissues, resilient bones, more connected neural system, dealing better with the stress, which I think it's all things that strength and conditioning work are helping to build. With all of that, you have a better base in order to after train new amount of new crazy movements. And so I think it is quite new maybe to bring this practice in the dance field, because it's quite new that maybe the dance field is really physical. And I said about this is something that I observed, and I'm still in discussion, of course. It's not a final truth. But it is for me also a way to fight against the fact that in dance, the majority of, we are a lot of female in the dance field, few guys, and even less people, non-binary people and transgender people. And then we can see that it is half and half, and even a lot of boys has a lot of work. Around me, almost all the male have works, and all of us are more dealing with, it's harder to get a job because there is maybe more competition, or we can discuss about that. And for me, this is then again a way of saying, because it's getting more physical, then why it should be maybe more guys on stage, or it's been asked a lot to male to perform again maybe a really masculine movement. So it's still thoughts that are into debate, and I'm really happy to have thoughts around that. But for me, this practice is also a way to give to everyone that would need the tools, and patriarchy would not go away. And that's how we deal with it also in the dance field. But
maybe it will.
Maybe it will.
Hopefully it will.
Hopefully. But for me, it's a way also to fight against that. It's not so that everybody should train like that, but that everybody should have the choice to train and to strengthen their body.
So it's almost a political leverage, like
Totally.
a practice as a political practice, right? If I hear.
For me, that's the main thing of my practice is political.
Yes,
I would
that's
say,
very interesting.
for myself and how
Yes.
I like to teach it.
Yes, and do you bring that aspect into the work with your students and have those discussions?
Not so much, because I really want them to practice, and I want that everyone has the same. But I think on one-to-one, if there is some political questions arising or from individual questions, I will always open the discussion around it. But for now, we think a lot at P.A.R.T.S, and it's really important. It's really important to have a lot of theory and to have tools to actually understand what I was just speaking just before. It's thanks to P.A.R.T.S that I can think my practice and society. It's thanks to all the theory we got. So, but I would think my job as a teacher at P.A.R.T.S is to make them move within the strength work environment. So I'm mainly making them move.
Thank you. Tarek, you're the last. No.
What can I say?
I think you have a lot of things to say, actually, because you have a lot of interests. And
Yeah.
I also know you are currently studying osteotai, which you can elaborate on that, and holistic nutrition. So besides your Pilates practice, which is, why you're here tonight, all these other interests, and from what you've already said, you actually have little separation. Maybe you have more of this like holistic way of approaching things. How do you, again, coming back to the time question, which is, I think, a big one for all of you, how do you curate all that information that you're dealing with at the moment, and what is it that you want to pass on to the students?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it stays very separate for me, Until now, I'm not bringing so much of the osteotai or holistic nutrition into the class with the students. Although maybe in the future I'll find ways to do that, or to be able to have sessions. Although I did do, there was a moment where I could bring in some of the osteotai and Thai massage practice. And we've done some things in class on days where they're really exhausted. I say, okay, let's pair up and let's work on how can you work on your bodies? How can you release and relieve yourselves? How can you, just to also give that option that you don't always have to push through everything, that you also can learn to relax and rest and recover the way that you need to in order to continue dancing in a healthy way, or in order to have a long career in dance. But until now, it stays quite separate, because I'm, really just focusing on the Pilates technique with them, and still need to find ways to incorporate really clearly anatomy lessons inside of that. But who knows, maybe with time I'll also start to incorporate other information. I know sometimes when I have one-on-one conversations with some of the students, or they tell me what's going on, then I can slip some information in. I can give some tips or some cues, or talk to them a little bit about, okay, but how are you sleeping, and what are you eating, and other things that I can run through a checklist of things to understand what's going on with them, and then maybe give some advice. But that's coming from these studies of Chinese medicine, and how to use food and herbs to kind of as medicine to heal and to create balance in the body.
It's interesting because just before Palle brought up Chrissy Parkinson, who's also a teacher here, and you reminded us how she talks beautifully about practice as an ecosystem. And from hearing all of you, I have the feeling that maybe what is, common to all of those things that you're doing is somehow sustainability. Like, what comes to my mind, it's something about being able to sustain something for a very long time and kind of stay with it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think the beautiful thing about having it as an ecosystem, you'd have your own sun in your own ecosystem, and that will be important for you, but it's not all, you have all the other aspects of, so Charlotte speaks about the self-expression that is important within your practice. That's part of her ecosystem, that it will be something that is equilibrating politically together with the physical, and being possible to do all this physical work that she wants to do. So, but the sun in her system is called something with physical strengthening, at the base. And Derek is another different planets. It's an ecosystem, and for me, my ecosystem is different, but it's something that I carry with me, and that will sustain me, as you say, through my life, and will sustain also my main practice. If it was dancing, then I would help me do that. Also, but it's also something in and of itself that it's not a vehicle only to do dancing, But yeah, and I think Oriental practice has many different views on this. I mean, they have Shushoku Doso, which is breathing, eating, moving, and expressing yourself, or actually thinking. But it's a way of, all those things has to have balance. They say we have a physical soul and we have a spiritual soul. And the physical and spiritual soul are only things you borrow or something you're housing. But it's also something you have to take care of. So your physical soul has its own life in itself. So I think those aspects, there's only two of the souls. There are five. So they would say you have the thinking mind is a spirit of itself. Consciousness is housing all the other. And then a will to life, kind of like a basic strength of life is another one. And sometimes that is the empty one. You know, you have no more strength. And that's just your will to live is almost finished. It's the burnout situation. But you can attend to those different souls or spirits. I think that's an interesting point of view. You can divide it into different ways, but I think we all speak about having an ecosystem and being able to nourish.
Nurture, I think, is it's how those practices kind of nurture each other, but have their own lives of their own somehow. I propose, if you agree, to open it up and have questions from the audience, if there are some. Or to your peers, that's also allowed. It's always like this, there are no questions, and then suddenly someone asks one, and then we cannot stop.
Well, I have a question for the students that are here. Do you feel like the body studies courses that you have are kind of helping you with your dancing? Or are they providing you some of the resources of information or tools that you feel like you can take for yourselves and start to build a practice on your own as a dancer?
Raise your hand if you want to answer. I come with a mic.
I will say yes. I will say yes. But at the same time, I feel like building a practice or having your own practice takes a lot of time and like it also takes a lot of time to find what are your interests. And in my experience, I feel like in order to actually absorb all the things that you teach, I would need more consistency. In a meaning of time, more time. Like I feel like my body needs more time to have a class and then being able to take it into my own practice by myself. Like about maybe it's related to the time that it takes for me to remember the things that we do, because there is not always time to write down the exercises, or it's also kind of difficult to write down exercises. And yeah, I don't know, it's like hola. I feel like yes, but it could be more.
Someone else would like to? Yes.
A bit about what Mille was saying. I think one of the things that we had opportunity in body studies that I found super beneficial was to, along with Owen and Charlotte, we had the opportunity to like build our own like little workout, I guess, and get feedback on it. And for me, also because I share a lot of like similar ideas behind my workout and how I train for my dance as Charlotte. So I think that like it's really important, like Mille said, to have like our own practice, and that in the body studies was like one of the like most beneficial things, I would say.
Questions, maybe?
I just think like it's really helpful in a way that, for example, if we don't have the teacher, we will know how to manage to do our workout or how to warm up our body also. And also in another way, or I can say, for me, it's not also really helpful, because I used to like kind of train my body a lot in dancing while I was doing also. For me, I can say dance also is like kind of workout. Also, even though I'm not going in the gym and like kind of trying to extend my body and everything. And I can say like through dance, I can like do also like kind of my workout. Even though I'm not using the heavy way, I also use my body and also everything. And like coming from kind of traditional dance, I can say like, sorry. Coming from traditional dance, I can say like, yeah, because we use like a lot of kind of strength things and like really energetic and everything. I can say I can work my body with in a way that I don't need to go to the gym to like work out or do everything. And I think also it's nice to know like the basic and everything. When you go to the gym, you don't need to call a monitor or something else because you know what to do. Or if you know, like, my body is weak, I know if I'm going to the gym, I know what to work with my body and everything. I think it's helpful to know, like, the information and everything as a dancer, because we never know in the future and everything. But it's really helpful to know also all of the information related to sport and dancing and everything. Because even though it's not really helpful today, we don't know tomorrow. And I think it's just like kind of nice to have all of this information and keep it in your pocket, because today you don't need it, but maybe tomorrow you will need it. And tomorrow when you need it, you just remember, okay, I already had it in my pocket, then I just have to check and kind of like, yeah. And I had a question also. Yeah. If someone wants to. Yeah, it's related to like, have you ever experimented through your way of teaching, like, oh, when I was doing this movement, I had kind of like injury, or I did it in the wrong way or something like that. And if yes, how did you manage also on that time to recover, or, yeah?
It's open question to each of us. Yeah, I mean, I've had injuries in my dance career that I had to work through, that I had to find ways that I could keep dancing, or I had to make adjustments to the performances that I was doing. But yeah, my training and experience of different practices helped me recover a lot. And I think, yeah, Pilates in particular, I wouldn't say, I mean, yeah, it helped me for sure in my recovery process. Yeah, it was useful information for me. Yeah. If I was injured, or if somebody that I was teaching was injured. Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
It's like when you were teaching, it
Yeah.
might happen like an accident that you, like, kind of unexpected accident happens through the.
To myself or somebody
Yeah,
that I'm
to
teaching?
yourself, yeah.
No, I
Or-
never had that. No.
Maybe I just want to say that it's actually to rebound on you, but actually also to answer to you. No, I never get injured while teaching, but it's also one of the sports strength work where there is the less injuries in all, because it is actually the place where you are training in order to not get injured normally. and also getting to heal your current injuries. So on a perfect world, it is normally a practice to heal from injuries. So hopefully it's not a place where you get injured. And it is the same when I teach. I never feel unsafe, or maybe unwarm sometimes, but normally it's always okay. But also I was also wanted to rebound of all what we are saying. It's also about injuries and daily practice, how to find your own daily practice. And this is to have your own daily practice is an ally in case of injury, because as a dancer we don't wonder if we're going to get injured, we are wondering when is going to happen our first injury, or our first big injury, more or less big. And to have such daily practice helps you to, for example, you go to the physio, you have a diagnosis, you have a tendinopathy or something, an injury, and the physio gave you 6, 7, 8 exercises to do every day for 3 months. And it's, if you didn't have this daily practice as a dancer, it's too much. All of a sudden you feel depressed, you feel also you feel that you not have agency over your healing process. But if already you had your, I mean, that's how I experience it. If I already had my daily practice, my daily use of the gym, in my case, injury and an appointment with the physio or sport doctor is actually only helpful, and I can insert all the exercises in my daily practice that is already going. And I feel more agency over my healing process. And mainly also I have better access to discussion. I am more active on my healing process together with the doctor or the physio, because I know better maybe my anatomy, I know better the exercises he gives me that are specific and how to insert them in my training, in my workout. That's really how I see an injury healing process. And eventually at some point it becomes also a pleasureful moment or a geeky moment of like, oh, I didn't know these tendons should feel like that, and it's becoming interesting. And you know, all dancers say all the time that at first the injury, I mean, I have a lot those friends that tells me at first it was devastating, but at the end you learn more about your body, about your boundaries. And that's also how I see strength work and strength and conditioning work. It's also a way of knowing yourself better, knowing your strength, but mainly cherishing and knowing better your weaknesses and observing them and taking care of them.
Thank you. Eliška, you have
I had a question mostly for Tarek, I think, because it's related to the change of schedule. Because in the previous generation, I think there was a schedule that consisted, basically there were like 3 days in the morning, or 3 mornings where there were body studies, I think either Pilates or yoga. And now the schedule has changed, and we have like the body studies kind of irregular. And I wanted to ask, how do you feel? Because I think you experience it the most, or it changed the way that you teach the most. How do you feel about that? And also a second question, maybe to include the rest, what would be kind of the perfect frequency that you would like to teach your practice?
So I wasn't with the previous generation or generations, actually. There was just moments where I taught in P.A.R.T.S over the years, or taught at Rosa's over the years, but it would always be just like 1 week or 2 weeks. And so this whole kind of approach of teaching throughout the year at P.A.R.T.S is new for me. It was always in blocks. I think for Pilates, yeah, I mean, in a way, because I was starting with you guys as first-year students for the first time, you know, through the school year, it was important for me that we understand like the base of the exercises and the technique. I think ideally it would be great. I think it was a good idea that we started the first period when I started teaching with you. I think was in September or October, that we did a week, consecutive days in a row. For me, that was a really great start, that we could kind of go through things every day, develop on them, build on them. And then, because it's been irregular since then, it was a little bit challenging for me to find a line through the timeline, let's say, and to connect everything throughout all of the classes. I didn't feel like I had a good overview of, okay, we worked on this, now we can work on this, and then we can build on it in this way, because I felt like we had to go back over and revisit a lot of things to make sure that we still remember how to do it. But partially, I can say for myself, I could have planned differently. I could have maybe planned things better and been more kind of organized in the way that I was creating, let's say, a syllabus that I was following, to kind of structure things. But I don't know if that would have been a better approach for me for this year. I think as we continue, it's going to be something for me to focus more on, because I'm going to need to bring in more anatomy and really clear kind of lessons about the body and how I can incorporate that into a class where we're still doing the exercises and we're still warming up for the classes. So we're taking another approach for this next year, that when we teach, we're teaching once a week, so that it's more consistent and more regular. And we're going to see how that goes. That hopefully, with that, will bring about a little bit more clarity and consistency, and the possibility to kind of build from 1 week to the next week to the next week, instead of coming into a class after 3 weeks of not seeing you and jumping back into something that we did a while ago for one class. So I think it's the next step in trying to understand how can we organize all of it, so that it's beneficial for everyone.
Palle and Charlotte, do you want to share about your ideal time frame?
I would maybe answer to your question about, did you ever injure yourself in class while teaching? That's a very interesting question. So opened my mind anyway. And no, I didn't really have a moment of, ow, that was the injury. But I think also some kind of injury would happen through use of your body. As I said, it's something that we are responsible for, also something that we can be aware of, having its own wish or its own needs, or being in itself. So to not make good use of yourself is the beginning of injury. So I might find myself, especially if somebody would be filming me or taking a picture, said, "Oh, I got a really bad posture." So, "Ooh, that's a bad posture." So that's the beginning of injury. To not be in your directions, to not make good use, to not have awareness of what your body will be suffering. For example, you're too interested in what you're doing with your hands, or you're explaining something and your back is not well placed. I might not have a sudden injury, but that might be how my consciousness is lacking so that does happen. And that's, I'm never in how do you say, safe from that awareness. I have to be aware of that all the time, to not create tensions. And I met a very interesting person once, Bessie Schoenberg. Did you meet Bessie Schoenberg? She had stopped dancing actively because of knee injuries, and it was just like me. So, and she was this great composition teacher. I studied with her at Jacob's Pillow, and she said, "Let your body guide you to where it also wants to go. You don't inflict on it surgery or your way." So in that way, I was like, yeah, my body wants me to do different things, or not to do that too much, or be careful about this. I wanted to do Billy Forsyth ballet. I loved it, and I would have loved to do that, but my body didn't want. So that's also a way to be aware and prevent injuries, is to listen to where you can go. And that can be in a teaching moment as well. And then my ideal time frame.
That doesn't need to be as well.
No.
No. Are there more questions? Yes.
I'd be really curious to hear from you, anyone. When a student comes to you saying that they're experiencing pain, or even a very strong sensation that could be called pain, and are possibly destabilized by that experience, what kind of tools would you give, or guidance would you give? Would you give someone for how to find some stability as this experience is happening?
Well, first of all, not to do things that gives you more pain, so to listen to that. And what do they say? D'abord pas nuire in French. D'abord pas nuire. It means first don't make damage. So just to listen to that and avoid, and to find alternatives to whatever we are asked to do in the practice, and eventually not do the practice if you have pain. And then maybe we can do something that in my particular practice, it can also serve as an example for how to make an exercise to help that kind of pain. So that could eventually, when there's time and space for it, to be a guiding principle as well. But basically, to not do things that gives you pain, and of course listen to them, and but it can be any kind of pain. It can be like menstrual pain, like I have pain in my belly, and today I feel dizzy, so first just listen. And of course it's not the place to do an individual, always the place could be, but to do something specific for that person. But certainly listen, and maybe talk after class.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, it happens often in Pilates that certain exercises are painful for some people and others not. And I will immediately tell them, don't do it. If it hurts you, don't do it. You don't have to do it. There's no point in forcing it. Then we would take a look at, okay, why is there pain? Is it an alignment issue? Is it, it could be a list of things. And fortunately, Pilates technique, it's built inside of it. There's a lot of adaptations and variations built inside of it, so that, if, for example, you're not able to do one version of it, you can slowly build up to it. And even if that's not working, then I say, forget it. Just don't do this. It's not for you, or it's not the moment to do it. Don't be busy with it. And I think it's important for people to listen to their bodies and understand that it's your body telling you that it's not okay. And then if it's something that I can personally help with in another way, through the other techniques that I study and practices that I'm busy with, then maybe, we can set another time aside that we can work on it, or we can speak after class and I can show them some things. But I think also for young dancers, it's important to know that you're always going to have moments where there's going to be pain, and that you can stay calm about it. You know, you can find ways to work through it. You can find alternative ways to work with your body so that it's not causing more pain or damage. It's an ongoing process that we all go through. And it's not the, I think sometimes we often can get overwhelmed with emotions around the idea of injury or pain. And there's always a way to work through it, work with it, to find ways to avoid it or adapt, or, you know, finding ways that you were speaking about resilience and like working with our bodies in a way that we can adapt and become resilient to, so that we're avoiding injury and pain. Yeah, that's what I can say about it now. So I think it's, if, you know, as you continue to dance, you're always going to be confronted with that at some point. Yeah.
Charlotte, do you want to add something?
Everything has been said. Maybe the only thing I can share from my practice, I think from strength work perspective, is when you ask the questions, you said when a student comes with a really big feeling of, for sure, pain, and that's for sure exactly the same thing I would do. But sometimes, and a lot of times, students comes to me or to Owen with more questions of, oh, I feel a part of my body when I do this movement, and that's more then starts an investigation with the student of what is this feeling. Is it pain? Then you follow what has just been said. Is it information of maybe instability? Is it information of it is working, it is activating muscles, tendons, it is actually activating your body in a new way? It's new informations, and I think that's also mainly with the past generation. With this new generation, I feel it's less about that, but with the past generations, I could feel also a lot of fear facing strength work and using bells, kettlebells, and I mean weight, and therefore a lot of fear arrives. So a lot, if there is a new information, it means stop, or it means pain. And it is a nice information for us to take. It means also that, oh, it's a bit too soon maybe to use weight, or there is a resistance to it. But most of the time it's a nice information to discuss with the student of what your body is saying. Oh, it is actually activating the muscles chain we're trying to work on, or you're actually feeling another type of chain of muscles. It is always nice to have those kind of feedbacks when, again, it is helpful to help them continue through movement when it's not about pain. But it's always nice to establish with them what are the different feelings we can have in our bodies and how to discuss around it, I think.
Thank you. Palle, you want to add something?
Well, it was an interesting question, Diane. And since we work with touch with shiatsu, that is a moment also to see how touch can help that particular pain. So how does it feel when I put my hand, or when your partner that you're working with, you know, so put your hand, and then it can help the partner how to put the hand and just be present, and maybe put the other hand somewhere else. There can be a moment, and sometimes that guidance can help to see, yeah, it's actually less. Because our hands have this natural healing power to calm and to make you in link with somebody else who's listening and to caring, and it has some kind of radiation that would eventually alleviate pain. Children run to their mothers to get that touch, but they also go out of isolation of being a separate person with pain. So that's that helps. So in that way, touch might also have a place when people have pain.
Just gonna step back on stage because
yes, we were missing you.
Our time is up. Yes, and I just wanted to warmly thank you for all your inputs and amazing thoughts about body practice, body studies, we just, I think, realize that it's a lot broader than just about body studies. I want to thank the audience for your kind and loving attention and for your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.